Good day, scholars. This is the second video for the quiz application. Basically, what we're going to add in this video is the code needed to basically put up the question for the user here, right, in the question text. Allow the user to input an answer, submit it, and then it's going to tell the user if they're correct, incorrect, and then allow them to go to the next question. That's the basics of this video. I'm not going to get more complicated than that. We have some basic cleanup we have to do on our user interface. I did add a small horizontal arrangement between these two just to make a little bit of a space here. I just did 2% by 2% just to give it a bit of a buffer. And that'll be invisible as all horizontal arrangements are unless you change the background color. Some other stuff we have to do before we start coding stuff. First off, we have to rename some of these things so we know what they are. I'm going to rename the text box to answer text. I'm going to rename this button to submit button. And I'm going to rename this button to next button. And this will just make it easier for me once I start coding. I'm also going to, and this will make sense later, I'm going to disable this next button. I don't want the user to be able to go to the next question unless they get this one correct, right? I'm also going to change this color. I liked red at the beginning. I'm going to change it to gray, a light gray, just to kind of show that it's disabled. My plan is to have it turn green and enabled when they get it correct, and then red and stay disabled when they get it incorrect. So let's go to the code. Let's go to the blocks editor here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set some variables. We have to set 3 different variables for this beginning part. The first one is going to be a questions list. So this is where we're going to put our questions. So I'm going to call it questions list. I'm going to have another variable here that's called answers list, right? And then I'm going to have a third variable called question index. And this one, so the other two make sense, right? Questions and answers. The question index is basically going to allow us to set it to 1 first off. Is going to allow us to keep track of which question the user is on, right? So what we have to do first is we have to get our questions. Now I'm going to make a list. I'm going to go to lists, boom, make a list. I'm going to duplicate that, make a list. And just like our map tour, if you were here when we did the map tour, whatever's in the number 1 spot has to correspond with the answer has to be in the number 1 spot of the next list. So we have to grab some text boxes here. And let's say your question is, and this is just an example. You're going to have your own questions. What color is what color is an orange? That's a dumb question, right? And then the answer would go on number 1 here, right? Orange, obviously. You can't put it in the number 2 slot because when they kind of try and work off each other with the index here, it's going to check whatever's in the number 1 spot. It's going to say, hey, my answer's in the number 1 spot here. And if this one isn't the right one, it's not going to be correct. So you need to come up with your questions. You can come up with your own, or you can Google them. I went ahead and let me grab some here real quick. I'm gonna do this real quick just to save time. So here's my questions here. I just Googled some questions, some trivia questions for science, and then I have my answers. And obviously you won't be able to pull yours out of the backpack. You'll have to make this. I just did this earlier to save some time. So what food makes up nearly all or 99% of a giant panda's diet? And correct answer is in the number 1 spot, bamboo, right? True or false? Mice live up to 10 years. Answer is in number 2 spot, false. Number 3 question, what's the name of a phobia that involves spiders? Number 3 spot for the answer is arachnophobia, so on and so forth. Have at least 5 questions start out. You can always add more. We're going to code this in a way that makes it easy to modify. And then you have your variable here for the question index. That's it for the indexes, all right? After you get your questions done, and hopefully that doesn't take you too long, you're going to, what I want you to do first is I want you to comment what each of these are, right? So what you gotta do is you got to control click on there and you have to add a comment. I already have a comment here. I want you to add comments to every single thing you do in code from at this point forward. I know we didn't do it a lot last semester. It'll just make it easier in the long run. So these variables list the quiz questions. This variable lists the answer to those questions. And then of course you're going to add comment for this other one, right? Click on it and say, this variable will keep track of which question the user is on, right? And then just keep that there. So our indexes are finished. Next, all right, we have to add some functionality to this thing. So first off, we want to make sure everything's blank on the screen when it initializes. So when screen one initializes, we're going to set the question label text, right? Question label text to select an item from a list, right? Select item from a list, boom. And that item's going to be from, right? We're going to get a variable from our questions list, not index, question list. So it's going to be from up here. And we want it to grab the first question. So the index number is, you guessed it, number 1. All right. And then add a comment, obviously. Actually, we have to make sure we clear our correct label here as well. So correct label text to get some text, leave it blank. That just makes sure it's empty in case there's any sort of errors, something like that. And then add a comment to tell me what this does, right? So screen initialization. When screen 1 initializes, what happens? I added a comment. This event handler presents the first question to the user and clears the correct label text. Boom, right? Now we have to add some functionality to these buttons. I'm going to put that in a second video just so I don't run out of time. But this is the basics with the indexes, and then when the screen initializes, it makes sure it clears the text, and it sets the item label or the question label text to that first question. All right, so in the second video, I'll go over checking the correct answers and making the next button do what it's supposed to do.